Okay, I don't care what anybody says, but the rightful winner for Best Original Score for me this year, Pacific Rim. Like, as soon as I got home from that movie, this was my study music for a long time, but okay, fine, on with the nominees, I guess. Alright, so this is part 10 of my Oscar coverage. We're almost at the halfway point. This time we're talking about Best Original Score. Now, when it comes to Best Original Score, my criteria for this is much like Best Original Song. Firstly, I look at how good the music sounds, and that is a very vague and subjective way of judging things, but that's how we roll. But again, because this is the Oscars, not the Grammys, I will be putting more importance to how this score furthers the story or at least heightens certain emotions in a movie. And I'm not talking about an overbearing score. And what I define as a good score is a score that, highlights emotions that are not seen like visually. If you have a scene where someone's crying and then the music starts swelling up and it's all sad, it's like, the score doesn't necessarily add to the experience. But if someone's, let's say, crying on screen, starts playing this dark, foreboding music, you start getting, sense of foreshadowing, and I think that's a really good use of score. Again, take note that score does not mean soundtrack. So, like, if an established song was used in a movie, that doesn't count as score. Okay, we're talking about mostly instrumental music, created for the movie. All right, but let's get to the nominees. The nominees for Best Original Score are The Book Thief, John Williams; Gravity, Stephen Price; Her, William Butler and Owen Pallett; Philomena, Alexandre Desplat; and Saving Mr. Banks, Thomas Newman. I think this is a nice, well-rounded list. Although there's a bit too much piano in it for my own tastes. But it's nice to see certain movies get recognized, and they didn't get any other Oscar nominations. Like everyone's expecting Saving Mr. Banks to get more Oscar nominations. Anyway, first I'll be ranking these movies, in my opinion, from fifth place to first place. In fifth place, I'm gonna put The Book Thief. Well, most people know John Williams as the kind of guy who makes scores that really, really feel like anthems. You got your Star Wars, you got your Indiana Jones, that sense of adventure. But here in The Book Thief, it's very much not that kind of movie. That's why it's pretty surprising John Williams made the score for this. It's extremely subtle, it's extremely piano based also, but I think it really does fit the mood and the era very well, World War II. However, to be completely honest, I feel like there wasn't enough of the score in The Book Thief to, merit, a higher place on my list. It really is a movie that has a lot of quiet parts, and, not necessarily no one's talking, but like the score isn't necessarily needed in so many parts, and I think John Williams knew that, so he didn't really put, score for a lot of these scenes. And when the music does swell up in The Book Thief, like those scenes for me didn't work that well, so like, that's why it's in fifth place, I guess. Okay, at fourth place, I'm gonna put Philomena. And what's interesting about this is that Philomena was very much a comedy drama kind of thing, and I thought the music was really, really interesting because it also felt like a comedy drama score. It had a bit of that whimsy to it, but it definitely had the drama aspect of it as well. And when I talk about music, because this is gonna get really abstract, but I get really abstract when I talk about music. But when I was listening to the score of Philomena within the movie, I really felt like I was investigating something, if that makes any sense, really. Oh yeah, I have to mention that when I judge, these scores, I don't go out and search for, let's say, a video on YouTube that says The Book Thief full score or Philomena the full score. Like, I only listen to the score in the movie. And based on what I heard from Philomena, I thought it was a good score. It kept things chugging along. Like, I can imagine if this movie didn't have a score, then a lot of the parts would feel a bit dragging and a bit slow. But the investigative parts that Martin Sixsmith, I think it was his name, the character Steve Coogan plays, because of the score, it always feels like this mystery is ongoing. So I thought that was cool. But it ends up at fourth place simply because the other three I thought were better. Now, third place, I'm gonna put Saving Mr. Banks. This is like a really, really present score, and it's very busy. Like, what I mean by present and busy is like it's always there. There's always some sort of accompaniment to accompany the scene. And by busy, I mean it doesn't really have like very long, drawn out musical parts. It really, what I thought of when I was watching Saving Mr. Banks, I really felt like it was music from Disneyland. And music from amusement parks, it really has to make you feel like, things are going on and stuff to, give kids the energy to keep going. And I thought Saving Mr. Banks did that very well. It's very far from like an amusement park movie, but in a way, it really did support the idea that this movie is about turning Mary Poppins from book character to a movie character, and I thought the music really accompanied it very well. Some music here gets, pretty sentimental and stuff, but I'm kind of willing to let that slide for now because, it is about creating Mary Poppins, and that's classic in its own right, and I like how the score does feel very old school. So, third place. Now, at second place, I'm gonna put Her. Among all the nominees this year, Her is the only score that is not like super orchestral. It's very, like, parts of it are very synth based. You can kind of expect that from, people who came from Arcade Fire, who helped contribute to the score, so that was cool to see. And Her really is a movie about very, very complex ideas and complex relationships, and there's really something about synth music, more modern sounding music, that really supports that idea. It captures the complexity, and I really cannot describe it. But I feel like using an orchestral score for this movie would have just made everything seem a bit traditional, it would have downplayed the complexity of it all. But the fact that they did use more modern instrumentation and stuff really helped sell this. And what I like is that the score also has elements that are very organic and then very synthetic, and that really does kind of reflect the relationship between Theodore, who's a guy, a human, and Samantha, who's an OS. So I thought the score really did help with the storytelling. However, at first place, and I know I'm giving first place to this late way too many times, but I really think it does deserve it. First place, I'm gonna give it to Gravity. The thing about Gravity's score is that most of the time, at least a lot of the time during this movie, you don't really notice it's there because that was kind of what they were going for. It was very, very distant when it had to be, but it always had this sense of foreboding. And then when bad stuff starts to happen, this score was just hair raising. It was so great to listen to. But I didn't think it was blaring at all, which is a problem I have with a lot of blockbuster scores, like let's say Inception, which is like the king of blare. But I thought Gravity really wasn't blaring. It did feel very human, which is interesting. I'm gonna use a metaphor to illustrate my next point. It didn't feel like the score didn't make you feel like you were falling off the tightrope. It made you feel like you were about to fall off the tightrope. Does that make any sense? I have no idea, but whatever. Gravity had such a good score because it helped keep the tension there. If Gravity didn't have music, wouldn't have worked as well at all. And the fact that this movie didn't have sound in a lot of places, the score really did help the viewer feel that kind of danger and that tension. Yeah, it didn't have as much emotion as Her, but the score for Gravity, I feel, had much more impact and is such a good achievement to be able to capture the loneliness of space and the utter, danger of being up there. And as the movie goes on, the music really, really does kind of evolve. So at the ending, it feels like, it starts to get big and sweeping, and I think it really does earn that. Now, as for who I think will win the score, it's a tough call, but I'm gonna go with Gravity because, like I said, the Gravity score filled in a lot of the quiet moments in the movie, and I think voters will notice that more. The Book Thief, Philomena, and Saving Mr. Banks, I feel like they're all very, very similar in terms of they all use piano heavily. And I don't know, like the score for Her, I feel like it might click with a lot of Academy voters, but I don't know, it didn't serve as much of a function as Gravity did, in my opinion. But it's not like the Academy is opposed to, synth-based scores. In fact, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross won for their score for The Social Network, and that's like one of my favorite scores ever. But I really do think Gravity's gonna, take it this year. Alright, so those are my picks for Best Original Score. What did you guys think? If you agree with me, if you disagree, if you think someone else deserves to win, if someone else should win or will win, please leave me a comment and let's have a conversation.